Today's stories include selfish parents, a possibly rude dad, and the secret box. Let's get started. My name's Austin. Am I the a-hole for cleaning out the fridge without telling my husband? Posted by AITA Fridge Out 4563. My dear husband brought home a metal box that he checks on often during the day when it's in the fridge. When asked about it, he said it contained freshly picked olives his friend Jason got from his uncle's farm, and he wanted husband to keep it until he gets back from his business trip. I had no problem with him keeping it safe at the bottom of the fridge. Husband always asked me to be cautious with the box and not open it, as it would be rude to touch other people's stuff. Yesterday, I decided to clean out the fridge, which took me about 2 hours from unplugging the fridge, emptying all the items, groceries, vegetables, and containers, and washing and cleaning out the inside of it, and then letting it settle before plugging it in again. I took the box my husband brought out of the fridge and placed it on the kitchen island alongside other containers. While I was working, I received a video call via WhatsApp from my husband while at work, feeling bored, and he was asking what I was doing. I showed him that I was cleaning out the fridge, and suddenly he freaked out and asked about the metal box. I was confused, so I told him to calm down, and I showed him where the box was. He got mad, telling me I shouldn't have cleaned out the fridge nor even touched the box without telling him. I again tried to ask him to calm down, as I saw no big deal with that. His precious box was safe and sound, but he went on a rant about how the box needed to be put back inside the fridge ASAP and told me to plug the fridge in right then, but I couldn't because it was still wet and I hadn't finished cleaning the other parts. Apparently, I peed him off by stalling and he hung up, and around 30 minutes later, he came home and pitched a hissy fit saying I should have picked a time when he was home to clean out the fridge so he could take the box somewhere else to keep it cool. I said, so what, it was sitting out of the fridge for barely 2 hours, and olives can stand being outside the fridge for a longer period. He said, I don't get it, and he took the box and wanted to leave with it. I asked where he was taking it, and he said he needed to go back to work and had no time to explain. I shrugged this whole thing off, but he came back with it in the evening and put it inside the fridge and then complained about me cleaning the fridge without telling him and acting dismissive of his opinions. I argued, what opinions could he have on cleaning out the fridge? He argued back, saying he promised Jason he'd keep his olives in good condition and then I should have just told him. End of story. I wonder if I messed up. He usually doesn't get that mad unless I've messed up, and I think I have. So first of all, yes, I'm aware that he is acting overprotective of the box, but he always acts like that whenever someone asks him to keep an item safe, like furniture or car parts. And second of all, no, I haven't seen those olives myself, and I haven't really opened the box because I didn't think I'd even have to. But husband tends to get overprotective of his friend's belongings, so I didn't give it much thought. Because, you may have been wondering, yes, I did unplug the fridge before cleaning it out since I did heavy cleaning. You can see it's a common method. Just Google it. If you're curious, I do it all the time. And to give some more info, the metal box does look like a container of some sort, but husband calls it box, so I didn't think it's much different. Regardless of what's in the box, he's acting pretty dang sketchy, unless it's a birthday present or anniversary, which you could tell the person. This is something you might need to have a bigger talk on because this is kind of weird and I really want to know what's in the box. He should not be acting this way. So no, you are not the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for not leaving some of my gaming consoles behind when I moved out? Posted by Wimpsim. I'm an 18-year-old male and I moved out of my parents' house 6 weeks ago. We had a bad relationship for the last 3 years and I couldn't handle living there. So I decided to stay with my best friend's parents. My relationship with my parents started to suffer when I was 12 and they became foster parents. Life changed pretty hard. They started taking in kids with all kinds of complex needs, and it led to them taking a sibling set when I was 13, and I had to give up my bedroom and move into my dad's old office, which was a box, so the boys and the girls could have rooms big enough to share. We then moved to a bigger house so they could foster more kids, but I still ended up in my box room. Then we fought about me having a job and not treating my step-siblings now that I had money of my own. From there, we pretty much fought about everything. They told me I was selfish and ungrateful, and I had so much that the least I could do was try to be a good big brother and embrace the fact they wanted to help kids. I just resented ending up in a box room and being expected to spend money on these kids. It felt like being shoved into a tiny room should have been enough sacrifice, but no. What really peed them off was how little I wanted to take part in the day-to-day stuff like therapies, doctor's appointments, taking them to and from school, and so on. Once my parents moved into the bigger house, money was super tight. They're still struggling with that now. When I moved out, I took my video game consoles, ones I paid for. There's my PS1, PS2, PS5, Switch, and a GameCube. My parents were ticked. They asked me to leave some of the stuff there for their foster kids, and I said no, that I had bought them and I wanted to keep them. They called me selfish again and said the kids deserve more of these happy things with all the hard lives that they've had. I told them they should buy them for them then, but I'm keeping my property. They called me an a-hole and told me they were ashamed of my attitude. Am I the a-hole? Hey, you bought them, you're not under an obligation, it's nice to share, but you know what, given the situation, I think you're fine, you're totally not the a-hole. Nope. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter that if she won't stand up for herself, I don't want to hear about it? Hosted by ThrowRA Won't Hear It. I divorced my wife almost 20 years ago because her work life became so severely toxic to my mental health that I was developing extreme anger management issues. To keep it short, it didn't matter who it was, she would not stand up for herself at work. So, day after day, she's telling me these work stories about how upset she was, and I'd give her suggestions and nothing would change. Things escalated, and slowly but surely, I was building a resentment that I didn't know was there, and I found myself angry anytime she would talk about work. She refused to get therapy or do anything to improve her situation, and our marriage slowly fell apart because of it. It wasn't until I decided to get therapy myself because I couldn't control my anger that I realized the relationship itself had become toxic for me. It took a lot longer after that, but we ultimately divorced as a result. Fast forward to present day, and my adult daughter is now working in the federal government, and she's letting the same thing happen to her. We talk on the phone every other day, we live in different cities, and the past 3 phone calls she's complained about the same situation. I've given her suggestions and nothing's changed. I immediately recognized my anger building, so I just stopped her last night and I told her that if she won't stand up for herself, I don't want to hear about it. She called me an a-hole and hung up on me. This morning, my son called to ask why my sister is telling everyone I'm an a-hole to hear my side, so I told him the abridged version, and he told me I'm the a-hole as well. I know I might have been just a little tactless in how I shut down the conversation, but I just can't invite that anger into my life again. Maybe it makes me weak, but I'm just not able to cope with it. So for the instances of standing up for my wife, she'd be in a team of 5, but because she was very efficient, her team lead or super or manager would keep putting more work on her. Even when she had more work than she could do, she would never say no. At one time, she was on 7 projects, and everyone else in her team was on 1. She just wouldn't say, "I can't, I'm swamped." I would literally suggest that she say something like, "I'm already on 7 projects, I won't have time to take on an extra. I know X is only on 1 project right now, have you asked them?" She would complain and stress out and have breakdowns before the week started because of work anxiety, but still wouldn't say no. After years of seeing this happen to my wife, but her never doing anything to change it or to try and improve herself so she'd have the confidence, the anger I was feeling at her workplace was carrying over to her. I couldn't stomach hearing about her work anymore without immediately becoming angry, but I kept bottling it until I couldn't anymore. Now my daughter is letting the same thing happen to her, so just hearing about it is immediately putting me in that place again, and the anger that I used to feel is coming up with my daughter. Before we reveal if you're the a-hole or not, we have to read the update. Here's part 2. I wanted to lead by clearing up a few things before getting to the update. My wife and I were married for 7 years before my anger issues manifested, and I was her emotional support for even longer. She introduced me to solutions and support, and we had our own rules. On our daily walks, I just listened. If she spoke about work at home, it meant we could discuss it. I did tell her that she needs to get help, but that was at the end of our relationship. She refused couples therapy, personal therapy, and insisted it was my responsibility to be there for her. Much earlier, I'd also asked her if she considered therapy or any other strategies to help manage her anxiety, but I wouldn't press the issue. I admit this manipulation, but my hopes were to open her mind to the idea that she can get help if she wants it. Her own anxiety is why she never did. Ultimately, I had to walk away from the marriage. My daughter is nearing 30 years old. She is not a child, and I'm happy to say we have a great relationship. Her regular calls should be proof enough of that. For those wondering why my anger is so hard to control, prior, I never really got angry. I was raised with the belief that if something happens, it's happened. You have no control over it, so don't let it bother you. I just didn't have much of any experience with anger because of this. When I started to feel it, I just bottled everything. I ignorantly believed that I had control. So for the update, I had a Zoom call with my children. I started by apologizing to my daughter. I'd never spoken to either of them about why their mother and I divorced, so I explained to them why our relationship fell apart while trying to keep their mother's involvement as minimal as I could. I confessed my mental health struggles with anger. I made it clear that it wasn't her fault. I found out that their mother told them a similar version, but put the impetus on herself. So now they have the whole picture. The conversation went well. I answered their questions as best as I could, and I reassured my daughter that she can always speak to me and that she can vent to me. She asked if it would help if she let me know ahead of time that she wants to vent about work, and it was embarrassing, but I asked if she could. We've agreed that she'll text me, "bad work day," and if I'm able to, I'll call her. My son didn't have much to say, but he did tell his sister that she can call him to vent too. All in all, things are pretty okay. I did schedule an appointment with my therapist. At this point, I've only been seeing her once a month, but this incident merited a call. Also, my daughter has decided to see a therapist for her anxiety, but she insists that she doesn't want to leave the federal government. She says the job security outweighs the risk with the future economy being so uncertain, and I'm proud of her. Not much else to say. Thank you everyone for your kindness and time. For everyone who is hostile with me, I hope you find your own peace. Cheers. Well, man, I'll just be honest with you. First way you handled that was pretty dang rough. But I am glad to hear that you've come around and you've said that, hey, maybe this was the wrong thing, and now you're approaching it with a more positive light. So, hey, good job turning the situation around for you, man. Comment the secret phrase below, Tyson, because the story had to do with the box, right? Be sure to watch the other readings here. Thanks for watching.